Hey guys, this is Fergal from Poker VIP. We are back yet again for part 4 of our 10NL Coral Poking Coaching Series. So we're going to be following the same format as we have previously. We're going to be playing 4 tables simultaneously of 10NL at the regular tables here at Coral Poker. I'm going to be talking through each situation as it arises. We're going to be dissecting some spots as we go through, and I'm going to show you the basic strategies required to go ahead and crush these games in general. So we started off with a 3-bet with the ace queen offsuit. We have the nut no pair here. The 3 kind of is an upsetting card because a lot of his worst aces, which he may show up with, we now chop with. But pocket 6s is going to be good for the win though, for sure. I like it. I mean, his small bet there, he definitely could have gone a little bit larger. I wasn't planning on folding my ace high there, so I think he missed out some value there, but it's not crazy by any stretch. So ace king suited on the bottom left table. We are definitely going to be bringing this in for a raise, and we're not planning on folding it at any point just yet. Jack 4 is not going to be good enough to defend, so we're going to be folding. Blind versus blind, I'm pretty much happy to go ahead and just through the 4-bet rather and get the ace king suited in here. Seems like it's going to be fine to me. And pocket 10s we will almost certainly be playing as well. King 7 offsuit in the bottom left table. If it's folded around to us, we can consider an open, but when it's open for us, we're going to have a fairly straightforward mucking of our cards. And ace 7 offsuit, we're going to be fine to go ahead and open. So the cutoff opens here with our pocket 10s. We can definitely consider calling when we have position, but I think I prefer the 3-bet. We're going to have the best hand here a ton, and there's going to be a decent number of flops that we're not overly happy with, so I think I prefer putting the 3-bet in now. And when the king high board rolls off, we're just going to start off with a check back here. We have a ton of showdown value. Obviously, he's not going to automatically have a king. We can't just be afraid because the king is there that he immediately must have it. However, when the jack rolls off as well on the turn, betting here definitely seems optimistic to me, so I'm happy just to check this down and get it to showdown. And we are good, so that is 1 pot for the good guys. Queen 9 offsuit is probably going to be a fold from the cutoff. We could consider opening it, but to be opening a hand like that, I'd usually prefer to have a bit more of a read on the small and particularly the big blind. So if they are on the tighter side, we can definitely look at expanding our stealing ranges from the button, from the cutoff, and so on. Queen 9 offsuit, though, without much information, should probably just be a muck in general. We have the pocket 8s now on the bottom right table, so let's see where the action takes us here. We're never planning on folding to the short stacker here. If he wants to get the money in, he's more than welcome to do so. And now I'm just going to bet an amount where I think he might try to jam over on as a bluff, essentially. We're just doing our best to induce a random bluff here from the short stack. So ace 3, that's exactly the kind of hand that we wanted to induce, and we did it successfully. So we pick up a little bit more money than we might have if we had gone for a standard sort of half to 3/4 pot c-bet there. So our 20-cent bet there just looks super weak, so it feels like he may feel that he has a decent amount of fold equity with his short remaining stack, so he's happy enough just to stick it in with the ace high there. 6-10 offsuit in the big blind unfortunately won't be good enough to do much with, so we're just going to be clicking the fold button. Even if it was a blind versus blind scenario where we were raised, I still wouldn't be planning on calling that unless it was a particularly tiny raise. The ace 6 suited, though, we can definitely look at using as a 3-bet bluff on a decent number of opens. Versus this 5x raise, though, I don't think we will be. I think we're going to be happy enough just to go ahead and click fold now. If he had gone anywhere between 2 and 3x, though, I would be using this as a 3-bet, but when he 5x'd it, it's just too likely that he has a strong hand and he's looking to build as big a pot as early as possible, basically. Especially, I haven't noticed this guy 5xing it already, so it doesn't seem to be a standard raise, so when he does it now, it just has alarm bells ringing for sure. The 6-8 suited here, we will more than likely be playing. We're happy enough. We have the button, which is nice. We're in absolute position for the hand, so we are happy enough to defend our button with it. And if it's folded to us, we're going to be using it as a steal hand. 3-7 offsuit, obviously a very standard fold. So we take it down with our min raise from the button with the 8-6 suited, which is absolutely fine by me. Not that I would have hated a call, but taking it down pre-flop is probably the best case scenario when you have 8 high. Ace deuce, obviously very standard raise from the button. And we're going to be bringing it in for a squeeze with the king 10 suited here versus the min raise. No one has shown a massive amount of strength here, and I would expect to get this squeeze through very, very often. We flop trips, which is fantastic news. So we're going to just go ahead and start off with a small half pot bet, which we will be doing with a very wide portion of our range here. And we're happy. We're just going to go ahead and call versus this particular player. We want to keep his range as wide as we possibly can. I don't love that the flush has now gotten there, but if he has a flush, he's going to be winning our money. He has a worse 10, which is fantastic news, and we get our money back from him, which I think we lost a hand to him earlier on while I was getting everything set up. So pretty happy to get everything back now. And we're up to €17 now on the bottom left table. So far, everything's been going okay. We haven't had any huge pots. That's probably been the biggest pot we've had so far. And obviously a pretty sick flop there. I don't think either of us are ever going to be able to get away from our hand there if the hands were reversed. So just one of those cooler situations where he was destined to lose his money. Although he didn't have to call a pre-flop for sure. Pocket kings, we're obviously very happy to open up, and hopefully we'll get some action. Pocket threes in the cutoff, we're definitely stealing with as well. If we do get called, obviously we have strong potential to flop sets and whatnot, so we don't mind a call. Taking it down though, again though, not a horrible scenario either. So we have a caller with our pocket kings, so let's see what the other players opt to do. So PS75 has brought it in for a 3-bet squeeze play. So what we're going to do is go right ahead and fire it back at them with a 4-bet. I don't really want to take kings in a multi-way pot. So we're fine. If we get all the money in pre-flop, we're absolutely fine. If we take it down now, it's already a fairly substantial pot, so it's not a horrible scenario. There's a lot of good potential outcomes as well if he sticks the money in with hands like ace king, pocket queens. I don't love this board. He can definitely have hands like pocket jacks and so on, but realistically in a 4-bet pot, when we have just a little bit over pot left, we're never planning on folding. So I'm just going to bet an amount here. Again, similar kind of strategy to earlier on, where he may just jam over with some sort of parts of his range that we're way ahead of. If he has a hand like pocket queens, he's never going to be folding either way. And as I said, if we're beat on that board, if he had flopped a set, for example, we're going to be losing a stack to him. And so we want to be betting an amount there which will allow him to continue with as wide a range as possible. So even a hand like ace king there, for example, I know we blocked that quite heavily, but if he does have a hand like ace king, he might be reluctant to fold to that absolutely tiny sizing. So I rather going for the very small underbet rather than the larger, kind of closer to pot size bets for sure there. Ace deuce, we're obviously opening blind versus blind. The 10-7 offsuit, we may open if it's folded to us. In fact, I think we will. If it's raised at any point before us, though, we're just going to be sticking it in the muck where it belongs. Definitely not a hand that we want to be defending our button with, but it's fine to be using as a steal. Actually, when there's a limper, we may go ahead and put in a squeeze play and play a profitable situation in position versus a limper. Anyone who's open limping, we're going to assume is probably not going to be playing fantastic poker in general, so we're happy enough to ISO against them and look to be aggressive on a lot of flop textures, this being a prime example for one of them. So we're going to fire here. If he calls, we're going to be firing on a decent number of turns. The 5 of spades is not one of them though, unfortunately. So we're just going to be checking back now. On the queen though, we may put in a large bet. In fact, that's what I think we're going to do. I'm going to go with an overbet here now on this queen. So it's going to be very tricky for him to call with a lone 9 here, I think. Our line looks incredibly strong. So we do indeed take that down. Notch another one up for the good guys. Pocket sevens, we are going to be calling. Being out of position here is a little bit unfortunate, but I think it's going to be okay. Obviously, we're pretty much just set mining here. There are some boards that we might get aggressive on, but in general, we're playing fairly fit or fold poker here, and we're happy enough to go multi-way with a hand like pocket sevens. When we do completely whiff, and especially on the ace high board, we're obviously just going to be checking and folding. Up on the top left table here, we have a hand with some interesting potentials. So we have 2 overcards to the board, we have flush draw, and we now have the initiative in the pot after he is checked to us. So we're going to be starting off with a bet. If we can fold out any of his ace high, king high types hands, this is an outstanding result for us. And even if we do get called, we obviously have a very large amount of equity against a lot of his range. The only kind of hand that we're really afraid of there would be a better flush draw than us. So a hand like ace 10 of hearts, for example, or ace king of hearts, those types of things. But obviously in the grand scheme of things, that's going to make up a fairly small portion of his range. So I think that bet is definitely better than checking back and just trying to make our flush. When you have a decent chance of winning a pot uncontested, especially when you already do have a decent amount of equity in it, so you don't actually hate a call, it's usually going to be much more profitable than trying to take it down without a showdown rather than relying on hitting your hand. 6 deuce offsuit, very easy fold, unfortunately. On the top right table here, we have flopped the top pair with the toppest of kickers. We're going to start this off with a bet. I'm far from in love with my hand on this kind of board. There's obviously, he can have hands like pocket 7s, pocket 8s, he can have some jack 9s, he can have a lot of overcard combos that are drawing live against us. So there's going to be a decent number of cards that I don't love seeing. He's going to have some 9x hands like 9, 10 and so on as well. So we don't really want to just be checking there and allowing him a free card to catch up on such a wet board. If this guy was full stacked, or if they're both full stacked, we could consider calling a hand like 9-10 suited there, but when the short stackers are the ones opening and re-raising, hands like suited connector type hands go way down in value, so trying to continue there would be a substantial blunder. The pocket 4s here, we could have considered using them as a 3-bet, more so as a bluff than anything else, but I think calling is going to be okay too. And the 9-10 suited here, when we have the original under the gun opener who is full stacked, it kind of sucks having BFPG over here on the bottom right table in the hand as well as a shorter stacked, but we're hoping that we're going to get to see a multi-way flop here. Pocket aces on the top right corner, we're obviously going to be playing this hand and playing it very aggressively, so we're going to start off with a 3-bet here, so we're 3xing over the original opener. We get re-raised, which is fantastic news. Always good to get re-raised when you have the pre-flop nuts. So we're just going to click it back here and go for a small 4-bet. Possibly should have made this a little bit larger just so we can jam flop. We call aces versus kings, bit of a cooler. Fortunately we flop him dead on the flop, or maybe not. That would have been a pretty, if he managed to run us there after we flopped top set against him, that would have been a bit unfortunate. But we do hold. So very nice start to the session now. We're up a couple of stacks overall. Obviously aces versus kings is just an absolute cooler though. There's no getting away there, unfortunately for him. Those kind of spots, they're never really worth analysing too much. They're just one of those where if the cards were reversed and your opponent is going to win or lose the same amount of money as you just did, it's not really a hand that's worth analysing in any way, shape or form. It's just a cooler. It is what it is. So they will all balance out in the long run. What you need to be doing is looking at the spots where you can outplay your opponent. So if the cards were reversed, losing less than he would have or winning more than he would have in those given scenarios, those are the kinds of spots that really kind of are your bread and butter of having a positive win rate. So ace queen over on the bottom right table, we're happy enough to put in the squeeze here versus the short stacker. This F4FN 89, I'm not actually in love with him sticking around with the flat call here because he seems like he's one of the more reggish players here. So I'm going to assume that he knows that there's a pretty high chance the short stack is going to be jamming all in. So I wouldn't have been shocked if he was flatting with a strong hand. Like obviously we flopped top pair with a very good kicker, so we have to have a bet. But if he had gotten very aggressive there at any point, I think he definitely could have gotten me off his hand. Just purely because of the dynamics of the hand. Having a short stack in the hand really changes the dynamics of the game. That being a prime example. So he could have flatted a very, very nutted hand there, for example, with the intention of assuming the short stacker has a decent chance of re-raising. Then if I call or if I re-raise myself, then he can come back over the top, essentially. So He snap folded though, obviously, so he might not be thinking on that level, but it is just worth noting like those kinds of dynamics and how they can arise, especially when you're against a player that you think is one of the better players in the pool, which I do believe he is. So we flop top 2 on a monotone board. He will have some flushes, of course, but it's not a huge concern. We're going to have the best hand here very, very often. That being said, though, it's not really a hand I'll be looking to get 200 big blinds in with. I am going to start it off with the raise, though. There's definitely hands that he can be calling with, hands like ace-king, ace-queen, especially if he has the king or queen of diamonds. So we're going to start off with the check and the raise. We're going to be betting again. We're just going to be betting 3 streets here for value, looking for a fairly substantial pot. So he goes ahead and folds the turn though, which is not the worst case scenario either. Ace-queen, we're going to be bringing it in for an ISO rather, if it was just folded to us. When it gets raised already, we're going to go ahead and bump it up again ourselves. We're going to make it reasonably small here. We have position versus the short stacker here, so we don't really hate him coming along. I didn't want it to go 3-way though, and when we flop only a gut shot, we're not overly happy with our hand here. We do block a decent number of king X, but that's not to say that they can't have a king. We don't really have any backdoor flush equity or anything of the sort either, so I'm going to just be going ahead and folding the ace-queen here. Especially when it goes back call. So I'm just keeping an eye on this table now just to see what gets to showdown. So we have a queen and a 9 and a king and a 7. So we're really hoping that BFPG keeps reloading. If he is making those kinds of calls, he's going to be losing at a fairly substantial margin at the table. So the longer he sticks around, the better for us, especially when we have a media position on. And Potato Orga, that was a pre-flop, definitely very loose, but then when he flops the 2 pair, obviously completely standard, looking to get the money in post. Pocket 9s we will be playing, almost certainly. If there's a raise and a re-raise before us, maybe not, but in general, we're always going to be playing pocket 9s. When it's folded to us, we're obviously bringing it in for a raise. The Jack-9 offsuit, we are going to have a decision. I think we're going to go ahead and steal. As long as maximum allure folds, we have position on the hand, for the rest of the hand, which is nice. And ace-5, we're going to go ahead and use as a 3-bet bluff. So we get 3-bet by Baliba over on the top left table. We're going to call, we're going to see a flop. So we're not just set mining here with the pocket 9s. There are a decent number of boards that we are going to be happy putting more money in the pot on. This isn't one of the worst of boards. There's obviously an overcard, which isn't great, but it's not the worst of boards for us. What I'm going to do, rather than checking and allowing another turn card to hit, I'm just going to go ahead and fire small here, especially when Balibat checks. He shouldn't ever have that strong a hand here. So I'm really only worried about Tongue NGS over here. Now he's a short stacker, which is a bit upsetting because he will be more likely to ship the money in, but I don't think he's going to be doing it that wide. So if he does, we've got a fairly easy fold. There's no real draws that are feasible. So hopefully we just get this through with the pocket 9s. That'll be ideal. So he is tanking, is Baliba. On the ace-high board here, so we 3-bet. These guys have shown a propensity for sticking around very, very wide, especially the short stack to our left. So I'm a little bit hesitant. This was a mistake. I meant to make that 25 cent. I actually raised to 75 cent. That was a blunder on my part. So we're just gonna check back the Jack King here, I think. So I feel quite silly doing this on camera, but hey, these misclicks, they can't happen when you're typing in numbers. It was just, as I said, just a blunder on my part. We get called. Whatever Tongue NGS has, he is making a mistake by calling with his stack size there. I don't like his call with any part of his range. On this board, one of the worst possible boards for us, we're just going to be checking and giving up, I think. Although when the ace rolls off, we actually may be able to do something with our hand, use it as a complete stone cold bluff, basically. We're going to fire once here. No need to make it big at all. The types of hands that we're targeting to fold out here are going to be folding to any sizing realistically, so just the kind of 1/3 to between 1/3 and half pot size can be fine. I think our turn bet there is going to be okay in general, but obviously our pre-flop sizing there was quite a substantial mistake, and it was just an error on our part. So no hands going on at the moment. And just keeping an eye on the table in general. So on the bottom right table, BFPG is looking like he could potentially get stacked again on this table. He's down to a very small amount. Obviously, we'd preferably want him to win this hand. There's a very decent chance that this is going to go all the way, I would assume. If Pota Orga has called already this far, I presume he doesn't have a hand that he's ever considering folding on the river, which he doesn't. And he gets there with runner trips. Okay, it's I presume that there must have been a bet on the flop, I would have thought, and possibly not. Fortunately, BFPG has reloaded though. That's what we want. Like, obviously with his hand there, pocket fives, he got very unlucky there to run into the runner, but it was an absurd line in my opinion, kind of looking to get all of his money in there with the fives. 4-3 offsuit, we're going to have a fold, and the ace-4 suited up in the top left table, we are likely going to be playing. We're probably just going to click call here and look to see a multi-way pot. Again, it kind of sucks that this guy is such a short stack, but it's going to be okay. We flop top and bottom pair, which is very nice, so we're going to have a hand where we're pretty much going to be looking to get the money in. So we're going to start it off with a healthy 2/3 pot bet. Problem with this board, when it just checks through, where we are going to see a lot of folds there, unfortunately, but our hand is just way too strong. We really want to make sure that we're looking to build a pot, and if the flop checks through, if they don't have anything, there's a pretty decent chance that the turn is going to check through as well. So we need to start building the pot ourselves and doing our best to get more money in there when we have such a strong holding. 3-4 suited versus under the gun opener, we're just going to go ahead and fold. If we were in position, we may consider calling that if it was looking like it was going to be a multi-way pot, but out of position where it's likely just going to be heads up, calling with 3-4 suited is going to be a losing proposition for sure. And people have a tendency to strongly overvalue pocket pairs, suited connectors, should I say. While they can be very strong hands in certain situations, you need to really choose the situations where you're looking to play them in. So you want to be looking to see a lot of cheap flops, preferably in multi-way pots to make them valuable. A lot of people just see suited connectors and assume that they should be playing them regardless of the action beforehand, or, well, to an extent. So that's definitely going to be a mistake in general. Ace-5, we're going to be bringing it in for a raise. Almost made it the wrong amount there, almost made it 35 cents when I meant to make it 25. Need to keep an eye on the bet sizings. Uh, 7-10 suited in the big blind. We may have a defend in our hands depending on the action pre. So we have the limper from under the gun, Pota Orga, and we're probably just going to check this back and see a flop, if we're given the opportunity to do so. Queen 8 versus the mid position open, we're just going to go ahead and stick in the muck, and we're obviously just folding here. There's no merit in continuing with the 7-10 suited. So this hand is almost certainly going to get to showdown now, when there's only 85 cent stack left behind here. So Pota Orga obviously flopped absolutely nada there. I kind of think if he has any hands there, he's going to be check folding the flop. He should really just be getting the money in pre-flop in general there. I think calling and then folding when his opponent is so short stacked is going to be a mistake. Jack Queen offsuit we're going to use as a 3-bet bluff from the small blind versus the button. We get re-raised. We get re-raised very, very large, so we're obviously just going to be folding. Whatever his holding there was, I think his sizing was definitely off. I think he made it way too big. If you're bluffing there, your bluff is going to be costing way too much, and if you have value, you're going to be obviously narrowing my range that I continue with. And it's very difficult to balance that kind of sizing for sure, so I think that was definitely a mistake on his part. Pocket queens, obviously a very standard open. We are not going to be folding to a re-raise if it comes in. Although I probably wouldn't be 4-bet looking to get the money in here versus when we're so deep, like when we're 160 big blinds deep. Pocket queens isn't really a hand that you want to be stacking pre-flop, but we're for sure going to be calling a pre-flop 3-bet. Pocket aces again up in the top left table. Let's see if we can cooler somebody. So we start off with the button raise. We're obviously going to be bringing it in for a 3-bet. Not as a bluff this time though, and unfortunately we don't get re-raised when we have the goods this time. So the short stacker is now sitting out. It looks like that might be him done. Nope, he's rebought. So I think he's rebought a few times now since we sat down at this table. Versus a min raise, I think we can go ahead and click call here. It's obviously not great, but we're getting 3.5 to 1 on our money, and we have a hand that is somewhat connected. So I don't think it's ever going to be that bad. I think calling is going to turn a marginal profit. It's obviously not a fantastic situation to be in though. We flop a gut shot, which is something. Oh, the short stacker that was there has now left, unfortunately. He obviously just didn't rebuy in time, and then when he missed his blind, decided to pack it in. I would have started betting here if we hadn't improved, but now that we have some showdown equity, I don't think we need to start bluffing. I'm going to call once here, and if he barrels the river as well, we probably just give up. The queen I don't love at all. That queen has actually connected very, very well with his hands that he can be bluffing here with, so the chances of having the best hand now are almost non-existent, I think. Turn call was possibly actually a little bit optimistic as well. So 10 jack, we're going to be bringing in for a steal. If it's folded to us, if it's raised before it, we will consider using it as a 3-bet bluff. We don't have to consider that because it's folded around to us, and then it's obviously a very standard steal hand, blind versus blind. We're going to go ahead, we're going to fire, and if he calls us on this board, we're probably just going to give up on the turn. We're not really planning on firing a bunch of multiple barrels in this kind of board. It's very much just a one and done scenario with a hand that has no equity and no backdoor equity either, or very little at least. Pocket nines, we're actually just going to go ahead and call here. 3-betting is for sure a viable option as well, but I'm fine mixing up my strategy every now and again, so let's just go ahead, call, and see a flop in position. No set, unfortunately, but not the worst of boards. We're going to start off with a call. If he fires multiple streets, then we're probably going to fold, unless we improve. So he continues betting here, so yeah, we've just got a pretty easy fold now in our hands. Pocket jacks, we're definitely not folding to a donk bet here, but on this kind of board, if he fires again, I think we may just need to fold. We're going to be in an awkward spot on the river now if he does bet, is the only thing. I think folding pocket jacks here is just too weak to a flop donk bet though. I'm not in love with this situation at all, but okay, we're going to go ahead and fold. Ace Jack, we're going to be defending in position here versus F4 FN 89. That's a pretty good flop for us. We flop the absolute stone cold nuts. So we're gonna just go ahead and I think we just have to call. We block so many of the hands that he can continue with versus a raise here. So and we want to keep Pota Orga in the hand as much as possible as well. So we're just gonna start off with a flat call. If F4 FN barrels again, then we're just going to ship the money. And we're just going to, we're not going to just jam all in ourselves here, we're just going to bet a smaller amount for sure. See if we can get Pota Orga to come along and pay us off in full. The queen actually sucks. It's going to be very difficult for him to pay us off in full now. I mean, the pot is so big that he kind of is priced into call with a very wide range, but I would have rather, like, if this queen would have been much better if it was just like a random deuce or something like that, obviously. He may be able to fold some of his range now, I think. But obviously we still have the nuts. The only thing that we can do is stick the money all in and pray that he finds a call. Unfortunately, he doesn't. It's still a very tidy pot to pick up, though, without a showdown. Possibly missed a little bit of value by not getting the money in earlier, though, is the only thing, but that was just a very unfortunate run out for our hand. If that queen hadn't come, I'd be pretty confident he was calling her all in there. So we're up money on all of the tables now, which is always a nice thing to be able to say. Again, King Jack suited, definitely a little bit borderline, but I'm happy enough to play a pot in position here. So we're going to go ahead and click call and see what happens on the flop. So we're going to start betting now. Like, we can definitely have a decent number of overpairs here, and he is going to show us a decent amount of ace highs that we can get to fold, so that's what we're going to do. He check calls and the flush rolls in. I think I'm going to barrel once more here. Seems fine to me. Like, our line does look quite strong. We fire a second shot on this kind of run out. So unless he's turned himself a flush draw, I think he is probably going to be folding a lot of his overcard floats, which he does. And we're going to be bringing ace queen in for a raise, regardless of the action now. So when it's raised on the button, we're going to be bringing it in for a 3-bet. So in the top left table, we're actually down to 4-handed now for this foreseeable future. So hopefully people will fill up those seats, but it's not the end of the world if they don't. So we're going to be continuing along. So we have a 5th player now already, and more than likely we'll be joined by a 6th fairly shortly. So 5 deuce suited, a little bit too weak to be opening, although it wouldn't be an absurd open. It's definitely a little bit close, but I think it's probably better just going in the muck. The 6 queen offsuit we're going to be folding almost certainly. If it's folded to us, actually, maybe we will consider opening, because this Pota Orga gentleman seems to be calling very wide pre-flop, which is bad for our hand, but he also seems to be giving up on a lot of flops where he doesn't connect, so he's playing very fit or fold. So I think we're going to be able to very profitably open quite a wide range and then just c-bet a very large percentage of boards and expect to get a decent number of folds to make that directly profitable. It gets raised before it gets to us though, so we lose our opportunity to do so. And obviously when it does get raised before us, we have a very trivial fold in our hands, of course. So we're five-handed now on a couple of our tables, on the top left and the bottom right, but with the way that the lobbies work in Coral Poker, there's no table selection. You join the pool and you get put at a table. So presumably, when somebody else tries to join the pool, they'll get added into one of those tables. It's a very good system to have the regular cash game tables because it stops tables breaking easily. So for a table to break, it just means that there just needs to be less people playing on the site essentially. So kind of as it moves from an on-peak time to an off-peak time, obviously the overall number of tables will gradually reduce, but it means that tables don't break as often as they do on a lot of other sites where you are able to table select, which is nice. We're going to go ahead with a 3-bet with our suited ace. We flop the flush draw, which is quite exciting. We're going to start this off with a c-bet. We're nice and deep here, which is very cool. Taking down the pot there with ace high isn't a horrible result, but I wouldn't have minded a call there at all. We're getting 5-1 here, but I think I prefer using this as a squeeze hand rather than a flat call. Folding is out of the question getting such a good price, but I think putting in the raise is going to be more profitable than just calling. Obviously I stand corrected because we're getting 3-bet here by Isabella XXX. And when we do get re-raised, obviously we're just sticking the cards in the muck. But in general, that squeeze play should turn a very tidy profit in the long run. I'd be pretty confident that we just woke up with the button having a fairly good hand there. I wouldn't expect that to be a bluff very often at all. So we flop middle pair on the bottom left table. I'm going to start this off with a check. Betting doesn't accomplish a massive amount. We get a little bit of protection from some of the hands, but we're also the upsides of checking this back is that we're pot controlling when we are beat. That's the beauty position. So now that it's been checked to us twice, we almost certainly have the best hand. So we're going to start betting here for some value and for a little bit of protection if they have any sort of ace high calls, that kind of thing. We want to make sure that they pay to hit their overcards. Queen 8 suited, pretty easy open from the button. We have a new player that's just joined us, Casanova DS over here, who is a short stacker. We're going to be ISO-ing the limper here when we're nice and deep with this kind of hand. And we flop top pair with a decent kicker over on the top left table, so we're just going to be betting it. When the king rolls off and there's a potential flush now on board, that plan will change. We're just going to check this back. And I don't think we're planning on folding rivers if it's bet. I don't love the pot size bet at all though. The pot size bet we may fold too. It's kind of hard to imagine this being a bluff here, so we're just going to go ahead and fold. On the bottom left table, we fired when we have a pair just purely because we can actually fold out some better hands, and there are a lot of cards that we didn't want to see on the turn, the 9 of diamonds being one of them. When we get called and we get led into, we have a very trivial fold in our hands, unfortunately. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see a flush get shown down there if we went to showdown. So likely we were drawing dead. Ace King though, we're just going to be going ahead and not ISOing the limper yet again, this time with a more respectable holding. Much better flop for us this time. So we have top, we have some backdoor potential with the flush draw as well. So we're going to be starting this off with a bet, and we have pocket kings over on the top left table. So good hands all around. So F4, Fn goes, so we get called in 2 spots, so we pick up a gut shot. Interesting that we get called in 2 spots. I mean, obviously we're going to be up against some sets here, like pocket 2s and pocket 4s aren't beyond the realms of possibility, but there are also going to be a decent number of worse kings potentially out there. So we're going to be betting again for value. If we get raised here, I'm going to be very, very sad. But I think there is just too much value to be had here to not bet again. River is close. River is definitely close. I think that we just have to bet again. It's just the chances of us being beat here are just so slim, I think. Unless it's a hand exactly like King 9. But I think that we're going to put in another €5 into the pot. and try to get calls by hands like king, queen, and so on. Checking back here wouldn't have been crazy though, but I think that we have to just try get some value here. I just think the chance of us being behind here is too slim. So f4 fn finds the fold. Let's see. So 2 folds. That's a very interesting hand. I'm at a loss as to what kind of hands that they could have shown up with there, because I can only assume that they're not planning on folding a king on the river. So very, very peculiar hand. Pocket sevens, unfortunately, we're not getting a good enough price to continue, so we're just going to go ahead and fold. If we call, we're essentially set mining, and we don't have a high enough implied odds price. We usually my general rule of thumb is to look for 20 to 1 implied odds when we're looking to make a call, which we are not getting there. There are some exceptions to that rule, but as I said, the criteria there was not met. I don't think that calling sevens there out of position is going to be a profitable long run situation. Jack Queen offsuit is going to be good enough for a mid position open. And the Jack 8 on the button, we're probably going to be opening as well. The 10-3, not so much though. We can happy enough let that one go. Again though, the 8 Jack, when it's been raised before us, we're happy enough to let it go. But we have pocket 4s as the top left table, which again, absolutely we're going to be opening from the cutoff. And the Jack Queen suited on the top right table, again, standard enough open from under the gun. Some people might not open these types of hands, but I definitely think you can do so profitably, so I'm happy enough to include that in my under the gun opening range. Like, as I said, I know I've kind of stressed this point a few times throughout the series. Like, I want to be in as many pots as I possibly can. Like, if you have an edge on the field post flop, you want to be getting involved in as many pots as you possibly can. So you want to be raising as wide as you think you can possibly get away with. Unfortunately though, we get 3-bet here, so when the small blind 3-bets an under the gun opener, usually it's going to be with a fairly strong hand. So best case scenario, we're against a hand like ace king there, I feel, but we're going to be dominated there sometimes. He's going to have some pocket pairs like jacks plus sometimes, which we're in rough shape against. So against his overall range there, we're going to struggle to turn a profit there, so I'm happy enough just to let it go. So I'll be wrapping up the video now in the next couple of minutes. So that's going to bring an end to the Coral coaching series. I hope you guys have enjoyed it and learned a little bit to include into your game. One of the key takeouts is obviously just how soft these games are. We have seen some very questionable plays throughout the sessions as we've gone on. So overall, we've definitely turned a pretty tidy profit over the few hours that we've been playing on camera. So, as I said, hopefully you guys will have picked up on some of the tricks and techniques that we use to pick apart these games. As always, if you have any questions, queries, anything like that at all, you can contact me on the Poker VIP forums. You can also leave comments on the YouTube section or over on Poker VIP. I do check the comments fairly regularly, so I will be around doing so if you have any sort of specific questions. But for now, we've got a few more hands we're going to play out just before we call it a day. So the ace deuce suited, we're just going to instigate a multi-way pot here. This is definitely a bit of a borderline call from an under the gun opener, but as I said, we want to encourage a multi-way pot here with the suited ace, which is always going to be a decent situation. Ace jack offsuit, we're just going to go ahead and call. I don't really want to use this as a 3-bet bluff versus an under the gun opener, but I think it's going to be fine to call. And when there's an under the gun raise and an under the gun +1 re-raise, ace jack from the small blind is going to be a very, very easy fold. So we flop top pair, bottom kicker, which is a pretty unusual combination in hold'em for me, but we do it nonetheless. We have a pair here. We're going to start off with a check call. If he fires multiple barrels, we're probably going to go ahead and fold. Seems reasonable to me. The ace deuce, we're probably going to muck if Jay fires again. When he checks, I think we're going to bet for value because I don't think Pota Orga is going to have a better ace that often. He will obviously sometimes, but he's also going to have a ton of draws, which he is shown to be sticky with. So I think we can bet again for value and then just check back every single river basically. This is definitely a little bit thin, but I think it's going to be okay. So we're just going to go check call now. And I think this is going to be our last hand of the day. So we pick up a very tidy pot there from his picked up. He had a lot of equity on the turn with the turn. He had a good shot on the flop and he turned a flush draw. So nice hand to round out the session. So I've really enjoyed making these videos. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching them, and as I said, I hope you've picked up something from them as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back again with more videos from Poker VIP soon. Thank you very much, guys. Take care.